we're discussing cat cheese, and how feeding Sancha cat cheese for the rest of this stream is going to be therapeutic. And I'm gonna hand it over to Little Pistons.
Thanks, Sin. Hello, everyone, and welcome to Gamers for Peace, an initiative of Veterans for Peace. We are a group of anti-war veterans and allies who are speaking out against military recruitment to kids in gaming and streaming. Gamers for Peace is committed to creating inclusive gaming, streaming, and virtual environments. We support Black, Indigenous, people of color, queer, and trans people, and acknowledge their struggles to gain acceptance and have safe, supportive environments where they can be themselves without fear of verbal attack, judgment, threat, or violence. We actively work to dismantle systems of oppression and build a just world for all people. We want to take just a moment to review the Veterans for Peace Code of Conduct with a short video that was produced by our member, Pacifist War Vet.
I'm listening to the stream and there's no audio.
There's no audio.
Mm-mm.
Oh no.
Oh no. No. Bear with us. I'm calling and doing an audible to pull that video back up. I just need one moment to get a different file source.
Thank you, discount Seth Rogen. They said no worries, the message still gets across with the subtitles. We appreciate that.
Speaking of subtitles, those subtitles took forever to create on iMovie.
Yeah, I'm currently learning how to do that myself, and it's kind of a pain, especially when it's like a 35-minute video.
Oh, Lord. That's like 2.5 minutes, and it took me hours.
Sin, should we go on and then come back to the video? Do you need more time?
I'm switching to it right in just one moment.
Okay, sounds great.
Thank you, Sin.
Gosh, give them a second. Dang.
I know. I like, that dead air. Oh, I remember
Oh, I
being
feel
on
you.
the college radio station. They're like, no dead air. I'm like,
No
oh my God. Yeah.
Silence is death.
You were a college,
Death is
like,
silence.
disc jockey?
Yeah, it was my
cool,
scholarship
Piston.
job.
That's
It was
so cool.
Everybody is just so awesome in this community and has so many skills. It's absolutely amazing. All right, I fixed this. Hopefully this works. Hold on.
Alhamdulillah, maybe?
It's coming.
Inshallah.
Inshallah, it's coming. That goes away. Let's get dropped back in.
I will say there were a few mornings I forgot to turn on the transmitter at the station, so like we were off the air for a while.
Oops.
Okay. Transition.
Yeah, are we getting it?
Nope, still no sound.
Yeah.
I could read the code of conduct from the website if you would like.
Would you be kind enough to? I apologize for this technical
Absolutely, no problem at
snafu,
all.
and we will make sure that that video is included
Yeah,
in more content because it's awesome.
yeah, cool.
It is really good.
Aw, thank you. It was really fun working with the group. So I'm going to read to y'all our Veterans for Peace Code of Conduct. We will use our anger at injustice as a positive, nonviolent force for change. We will approach every encounter with fellow members and the public with positivity and mindfulness, and with the assumption that concerns raised are coming from a positive place and present a learning opportunity. Our attitude, as conveyed through our words, symbols, and actions, will be one of openness, friendliness, and respect toward all people we encounter. All members have an important role to play in Veterans for Peace, regardless of previous military rank, branch, or combat experience. We will respect one another as equal parts of a whole. We will not assault, verbally, in person, or online, anyone, to include fellow members and those who oppose or disagree with us, even if they assault us. This does not preclude a member's right to defend themselves against a physical attack. In keeping with our commitment to achieving our goals through nonviolent means, there is an expectation that members will not carry weapons with them to Veterans for Peace events or while representing Veterans for Peace, regardless of the laws in their location. We will follow the directions of designated coordinators during public actions organized on behalf of Veterans for Peace. We will use democratic principles within our organization to ensure an open, fair, inclusive, and transparent environment. We will speak as members of Veterans for Peace, but not for Veterans for Peace, unless designated as a spokesperson for Veterans for Peace. All members are free to speak for themselves or on behalf of their chapter as appropriate. Sexist, racist, homophobic, ageist, transphobic, gender discriminatory, and all other discriminatory language and actions are common within the military. They are not acceptable within Veterans for Peace. Our words and actions will maintain the political and financial independence of Veterans for Peace. To achieve the above goals, we will also engage in active listening, that is fully concentrating on what is being said rather than just passively hearing the message of the speaker.
Thank you so
Well
much
done.
for reading us for that, Jules.
Of course.
Or I'm sorry, Pacifist Warvet. So this is Little Pistons. I'm a Gamers for Peace Rocket League coach and a Veterans for Peace ally. I have my Rocket League team member with me, Smedley Butler was right, and then our tech guru, Sincerely V, and our two special guests for today, Pacifist War Vet and Plantifa. So Pacifist War Vet, do you want to introduce yourself?
Sure. My name is Jules, but I do go by Pacifist War Vet as a streamer and on our Discord server for Gamers for Peace. So if you'd like to find me there, you can find me under Pacifist War Vet. I have been a member of Veterans for Peace for a couple of months now. I've been an anti-war activist and artist for almost a decade now. And I'm glad to be here. I'm sad that this is an issue that exists. But I'm glad to give it my attention since it does. I will pass it on to Plantifa.
That be me. I go by Plantifa in our Discord. You'll see me as Devil's Leftist on Twitch and on the WeTube channel that I make videos on. And I joined Veterans for Peace directly as a result of getting involved in Gamers for Peace a few months ago when that started. And I am a Marine Corps vet of 5 years. When I got out, I kind of decided I was going to devote most of the rest of my time to fighting against the military industrial complex and these needless wars that keep going on, and as well as align myself with basically all the things that are in that code of conduct that I possibly can. And I continue to try and learn and educate myself, as well as take others. Take others in and yeah. Now I do the ad slam on Friday, so you'll see that happen on Friday. And yeah, I love this little community that we built. I'm excited to talk today.
Awesome. Thank you so much for joining us, both of you. And Today we are talking about military sexual trauma. It's often shortened to MST, so trigger warnings for today's stream include sexual assault and murder. To get mentally prepared for this heavy topic, I'm going to ask Jules to lead us in a calming exercise.
Absolutely. We're going to do, hold on one second. We are going to do a grounding together. It's a very simple exercise that grounds us in the here and the now. Often when we feel anxious, our bodies react as though there is some sort of imminent danger near us that we need to react to. And so a grounding will help us put ourselves in the here and now and recognize that we are safe, and that may help us hold our bodies in a place that does not react in that way. So we're going to use all 5 of our senses to ground ourselves in the current moment. I'm going to ask some questions throughout. I want you to answer them quietly to yourself. And so if you would like to, you can close your eyes so that you can be more aware of your other senses other than sight. And we're going to start with the sense of taste. What can you taste here and now? Got a little toothache going, so I can taste the Orajel I put in my mouth. And I can taste the Dr. Pepper I was drinking. What can you taste right here, right now? Next, we will move on to the sense of sound, of hearing. What can you hear right here, right now? I can hear the sound of my voice being filtered through my microphone and into my headphones. I can hear the sound of my air conditioner. What can you hear right here, right now? Next, let's move on to our sense of touch. What can you feel right here, right now? You might notice temperature or pressure. You might feel the floor under your feet or the coolness of your air conditioner. What do you feel right here, right now? Let's move on to our sense of smell. What can you smell right here, right now? I can smell the empanada that I have brought to this meeting as a snack. I can smell the cat food that my cat sitting next to me just ate. What can you smell right here, right now? Lastly, I want you to open your eyes and take in the room around you or the place you are, wherever that is, if you're in your car or outside, and realize that you are in a safe place, that there is no bear, there is no car coming towards you, that where you are right now is a safe place. Thank you.
I really like that.
Thanks so much.
Thank
Yeah,
you.
that was great. That's
Thank
a
you.
good thing to have in our back pocket for other
I
times
agree.
too.
That's awesome. Thank you for leading us.
Absolutely. Anytime.
So this topic was suggested by Smedley, and I'm wondering, Smedley, if you can just give us some background on what prompted you to want to discuss MST today.
Sure. So, it kind of came out of our discussion last week, much more lighthearted discussion where we were breaking down the propaganda in Falcon and the Winter Soldier, and you had brought up the concept of fridging, where female characters and characters of color would get murdered, raped, maimed in order to advance the story of the main character, and it just something clicked in my head that it made me think of the fact that it's such a prevalent problem in the military and has been for years. Um, I, that was really the main impetus behind it. I haven't had any personal experiences. It was just something that popped into my head. I made a random connection and I thought it would be a good topic because it's something that people need to know about.
And I know you had done some research on a particular case. I don't know if our special guest, do you want to talk about that case, or would you prefer to talk about maybe some of your experiences, or what direction you guys want to go in first?
Yeah. I don't know if I want to start off with personal experience.
Sure.
I think, yeah, discussing I believe it was Vanessa Guillen that you wanted to bring up, Smedley.
Yeah, so that was one of the issues. People may remember or may not at this point because media has, like they always do, moved on. But Vanessa Guillen was a soldier in Fort Hood, and she was 20 years old. Um, she was sexually harassed. She had reported it. From what I was able to see in the articles that I found, she had tried reporting sexual harassment twice, and nothing was done about it. She told friends, and they tried reporting it on her behalf, and still nothing was done about it. And then a few months later, she disappears and is found dead. Um, from what I was able to see, they still don't necessarily know um, if that had anything to do with it. The army is saying that the sexual harassment had nothing to do with her murder, but I
Of
Well,
course.
of course they
I
are.
don't really believe that. Of course, they're going to try and cover their ass. Um, it's
Whether or not it directly led to her death is like it's still the culture that's there that allowed her complaints and her friends' complaints to go completely ignored. Like even if that like the actual complaints were not the motive behind her death, it's definitely the culture that allowed it to happen. So either way, even if they can conceivably say like we know that this was not the motive, it still contributed.
right. Yeah, it's a case study, I guess, would be the proper term in how the military fails people who have experienced this. Um, she's one person, but other research that I was doing, uh, she's far from the only one that has experienced this sort of thing. Um, Let me go back. So I know for a number of years now, um, Kirsten Gillibrand. I couldn't remember who it was at first till I started looking things up. But back in 2013 is when I first heard about her making this effort that she wanted to get a bill passed through Congress to where the military is no longer in charge of these cases. And she's been trying to do it from what I could tell. She's been trying to push this bill pretty much every year since then. But she has a website for the bill that she's trying to get passed. And let me pull it up. Sorry. So it's the Military Justice Improvement Act. And she has a page to where she's gathered a bunch of information, and she's got links from other organizations speaking about the topic. So it's a really good resource. There's a link to a Human Rights Watch report, New York Times article, and things like that. But one of the things that is mentioned in the report is that 7 out of 10 service members don't report their assault. So what most people probably don't know, unless they've been in the military and been faced with this issue, is that there are specific people who are given the job of being the person that is supposed to start the investigation, at least, into sexual assault claims. They're called the sapper. And when you go to the sapper, they're not really, they have a regular job. They have a day job, as you would say. The sapper thing is extra responsibilities. And from what I've read, and from what I know of the sappers in the units that I was in, they don't really get a ton of training. It stands for Sexual Assault Prevention and Response. But they're the ones that people go to if they want to report sexual harassment, sexual assault, anything of that nature. And there's 2 ways to report it. So you can go to the sapper and you can say that you want to do a restricted report, which is where you get medical care, advocacy services, it says legal services, but nothing actually gets reported to law enforcement.
Correct.
And then there's unrestricted reporting. So what that figure is saying, basically, when it says that 7 out of 10 people don't report their assaults, is that only 3 out of 10 people who have been assaulted go the unrestricted route. And maybe some of the others will do the restricted, and maybe they don't even do any kind of reporting. There is a survey that the DoD does from what I could see, every 2 years. They'll do a survey. They'll pick, from what I was reading, it was like 100,000 people across the branches, and they'll ask them. I don't even know. I didn't see a copy of the survey, but they'll ask them about, whether they've been sexually assaulted, harassed. I don't know the specific questions. And that's where the estimates come from where they say 7 out of 10 are that not reported. A lot of that comes from that survey as well. That people don't even do the restricted reporting, and they just, if they happen to be surveyed, then they'll say, "Oh yeah, I was assaulted. I was raped." And so it's a very it seems to be, from what I've read, there's just not the trust that things will get taken care of, and rightfully so. I don't know if anybody has anything else that they want to add at this point.
I would. Oh, go ahead. Go ahead.
The important distinction with unrestricted and restricted reports, you're definitely right, Smedley Butler. I'm not saying that you're wrong. I just wanted to add that the important thing with a restricted report is that your command does not know who you are. The command is not notified except to know that there was a sexual assault that happened. They don't know any other details except that something happened within their command. They don't know who. They don't know against whom. They don't know anything like that. So the command only knows that a thing happened, and that's basically it. That's all I wanted to add to that.
Okay.
So you're saying that the person who perpetrated said assault or harassment receives no punishment whatsoever, that the unit as a whole, however, knows that something happened.
Well, not the unit as a whole, but the top brass will find out. But yes, that would mean that the perpetrator, whoever it is also kept quiet, whether they're in the command or not, with a restricted report. There's no investigation. It's just for the victim to get whatever medical or mental health services that they might need without actually having to go through the process of an actual investigation, whether command led or not.
Wow. That's insane.
I
Go ahead.
No, go ahead, Pacifist. You're good.
Okay. I just wanted to say that okay, so we talked about the number of people who would respond yes to I have experienced military sexual trauma. I just wanted to point out that for a lot of people, they may even deny the fact that they have experienced it for years and years after it actually happens. Because they feel they deserved it, because they have never identified this specific thing as assault or harassment, or they've never heard somebody else say it in that way, even if it affected them very heavily mentally and emotionally or even physically. That just coming to the realization that a person was harassed or sexually assaulted can be a very difficult thing. And so, we talked about the number that are actually reported, which is an incredibly small amount of the ones that actually take place. And on top of that, it often takes years for that realization to happen.
It seems like too, like consent is changing so much, like people's understanding of consent, that maybe some people would have felt like, well, I didn't explicitly say no, so how could it have, been sexual assault, if that makes sense.
And the SAPR programs, while they are a good effort, because it's better than doing nothing, I do have to say that their conversations around consent, at least when I was in, were problematic at best, especially when the topic of alcohol came up. There was a lot of focus on, if someone is inebriated, they cannot consent to you. It doesn't matter what they're saying. If they're inebriated, that's it. They do not have the capacity to consent. So whatever they say is kind of null and void. And there was a lot of conversations that happened with that over where that line is. Like, if someone has one drink, does that mean that they can no longer consent? I mean, common sense would dictate, generally speaking, no, unless they're on some sort of medication or something that makes them inebriated after a single drink or whatever the case is. So I don't, and I didn't like that the focus was only on, well, what if they only had one or two drinks? That really shouldn't be your gauge, because if you had two drinks but you're also on a different drug, that might make you inebriated. So I think the conversations around consent still has a lot of way to go in terms of improvement, because I remember hearing those questions and thinking, if you're asking these questions, you probably shouldn't be trying to have sex with that person, number one.
Right.
and number two, it definitely did not make me feel very good in my command environment. And someone's like, well, what if she only had 3 drinks? And it's like, stop looking for an excuse. Stop looking for a thing that makes it okay for you, because it doesn't matter. And I don't know. It just I remember that being like a point of contention with the SAPR program itself. And how I was reading an article. Sorry if I'm derailing anybody, but it's in the military times, so it's our own thing. And it basically went after middle level leadership, because at the top they're, they say the main goals because they're big picture. Um, and they pat themselves on the back like we're doing all these efforts, right? But when it comes down to the studies that Smedley was talking about, the anecdotes and the data does not really support that those efforts are working, because there's still this culture of harassment, this culture of protecting the abusers that really dominates. And it's really the, like, yeah, it's not written with the victim in mind, for sure. It's written with the feelings of like the middle leadership in mind, and those are the ones who are teaching it. So those are the other views that are getting into these death by PowerPoints. Like, for example, I remember there was one SAPR brief that I sat through that the gunny leading it asked a question. Well, why is this bad? And the first person that raises their hand says it threatens unit cohesion, and they're not wrong. Of course, that threatens unit cohesion, but that's not why it's wrong. It's wrong because it violates someone's body autonomy and is a shitty thing to do. So that's not like, that should not be the first thing on your mind. It's not only about the unit, and to, like, the leaders was like, yes, that's 100% right, and it rubbed me the wrong way, because sure, it is right, but that should not be the very first thing that you say, and you shouldn't validate that. You should say, well, yes, that's correct, but it's bad because it's bad, and it also affects unit cohesion because it's bad. So a lot
Yeah.
of the, yeah, a lot of the viewpoints around the trainings were centered around that, and centered around the fear that male service members expressed being around female service members because of the risk of getting an EO complaint or getting a SAPR violation. And it shouldn't be the fear of getting that violation. It should be taught to like prevent it. Hey, you shouldn't do these things because they're bad. Women and non-binary people are going to be in these spaces, and you need to get used to that. And maybe that requires altering some of your behavior, but too bad, so sad. That was almost never the feeling I got after those briefs, and I did several a year for 5 years.
I I wanted to come in. You said something planted, but that came to mind with that example of the unit cohesion being the first answer, and you said, like, what about body autonomy? Autonomy. It's tying into, like, military culture. Like, body autonomy is not taught by the military. It's, in fact, it's antithetical, because of we are trained in violence and trained in the use of force to get our means. So, like, the concept of body autonomy isn't something that your average Marine has a culture that reinforces that everybody has the right to privacy, or, like, protection of self, body, beyond violence, beyond physical means, because that's all the military has, and that means that you violate body autonomy just by the nature of being in the military. And then
Yeah.
that popped in mind while I wanted to the difference between the two kinds of reporting of an incident. There, in my before coming into the Veterans for Peace place, I was a national service officer with DAV, and there's an entire subsection of regulations and shift in regulations regarding mental health, service connection for benefits due to mental health and military sexual trauma. Like, entire law is written about differently and how to handle that, as far as what it requires to get proof for your veteran benefits, and so that you can continue to get
Oh, I have notes
treatment
on
for
that.
all the shit. Excellent. So, like, there's a lot that is different, and the two types of reporting don't make a difference when it comes to how to prove and I prove is not the right word because you do not actually need proof to get your benefits, mental health, physical, medical benefits after service if you've gotten out, if this has been your experience. And we can talk more about that, but I wanted to answer Unicorn's question about that. So.
Yeah, proof isn't needed for you to get benefits. Proof, however, is needed in order for there to be any kind of consequence. And providing proof of sexual assault is next to fucking impossible.
And just to point on that, proof is usually not even enough. I apologize because I guess now I'm going into personal experience. I did do an unrestricted report after I was sexually assaulted while in the Marine Corps, and I literally had a screenshot where the perpetrator admitted it, and that was not enough. It didn't matter. And I think that speaks to what Smedley Butler was talking about earlier with that bill that was supposed to take, I think it was commanders, take the commanders out of the equation in terms of what goes to trial or what is taken seriously and what isn't. That hits really close because it wasn't my command that did it, because that would not have been kosher because it was going to, or supposed to go to court martial. I had my own lawyer, and unfortunately the person litigating the case on the other side was higher ranked than my lawyer, and they were able to kind of not include him, my lawyer, in the conversation of the deal that was fostered to the perpetrator. So he found out the day after that this had already gone through and was already done, and had to tell me, I'm sorry, your case is over. Because the colonel decided that this wasn't that big of a deal, I guess, and offered this the perpetrator a punishment that was suspended for 30 days. It was restriction, which is you're basically stuck in your barracks for 30 days, suspended on the I forget the actual wording. I remember reading the whole thing like flabbergasted, but it was suspended barring a change of command. And he left commands 3 days later. So he never served anything. It was never on his record, and he got promoted very shortly thereafter. So that hit really close because what I actually wanted out of this was him to not be able to do it again. I wanted some sort of board, even if the board determined that he can stay in and still do his job, I wanted that somewhere. Hey, you did something wrong and you shouldn't be doing this again. Here's a consequence. And that did not happen, partially because the people in control of it were part of the same club, and it was it was put down to something that basically went away, and he never had to deal with it the same way that I did. So that really bothers me. I'm not gonna lie.
Valid.
Yeah, and if I could just interject really quick, one of the things on the Kirsten Gillibrand's website, she every couple of years she does a survey. She requests some case files from the 4 largest bases for every branch, like each branch's largest base. And the most recent, and they write up a report about it. The most recent report that they wrote up that they have on the website, it's a few years old, but I was reading through it a few days ago, and yeah, that's one of the things that came up with multiple cases, that people were given, alleged perpetrators, because we can't say for sure, but the accused was given restriction and a slap on the wrist. They were given restriction, or sometimes they were just separated. They were allowed to leave the military, and no consequences other than that, which is not at all anything approaching justice.
No.
Yeah.
Especially when you add in all of the other things that tend to happen, like the so retaliation against a report like this is explicitly prohibited, but that doesn't mean it doesn't happen.
Exactly.
And it tends to happen in very small ways, like ways that you can't really prove as actual retaliation. Like, I'll use my own example again. I was called into my first sergeant's office, and basically berated. And he blamed it on the fact that I had drank alcohol during, like prior to it. He asked me why I was doing certain things, and this is raw, like a few days old. So I'm sitting here like unable to really truly respond or anything, to the point where I had a UVA, a Uniform Victim Advocate. She was great. She helped me a lot. I texted her, and she basically dropped what she was doing and came to the office too, and was like, "Don't you dare." So he got messed up for that, and he actually was not allowed to retire because he did that to another female service member who had reported a sexual assault. So this was a pattern of behavior by this point. But I'll digress on that one. It was like the small ways like that, and in my case, the perpetrator was in my platoon. So that meant every day for formation in the morning, I would have to see him, and I would have to go there and physically be in that same space, which was not ideal, especially because that was at DLI, very difficult language school, and it was like it was the last few weeks that I had. So I was like in crunch time, trying to be able to do everything I could to leave there. And the one thing I asked for, and this was an unrestricted report. There was an investigation and all of that, so I was able to like ask for certain things. One of them is a change of command. That was not feasible because it was still my A school basically. But I asked, can I be moved platoons? There were 2 platoons that were strictly just Arabic linguists, which was what I was, and it would be as simple as moving my name on a roster, and they would not do it. Luckily, I had a very nice staff sergeant who basically allowed me to just text him that I was awake and alive in the morning, and I didn't have to show up for formation. But if I didn't have that, I would have been forced to go to formation every day in the same platoon as the person who sexually assaulted me, just because they didn't want to do it. They just didn't want to move my name. It would have been super simple and super easy, and it would only be for like 4 weeks-ish, because that's about how long I had left at the time. So little things like that make it extremely clear that they do not care about the victim in that case. They only care about preserving their own culture and their own perspectives. They don't want anything to challenge it, and they don't like the short female Marine that's making waves. They didn't really appreciate it.
Yeah,
But
it's
it was
not
in
just that
small
they
ways.
it's not just that they don't care about you, it's that they want to punish you, because you reporting this thing that happened is threatening unit cohesion. And
Yeah, not
that
the
is a
assault,
problem.
though. That didn't
Yeah.
threaten anything, apparently.
Yeah, exactly. I would like
That
to be
was
the
fine.
first to say that guy who called you into his office, fuck that guy.
Yes.
That's fucked up, and you did not deserve that, and that should not have happened. I'm so sorry. Yeah. When would you talk about the small ways that people can be punished? I mean, it can literally be something as simple as being put on shit duty. You know,
Yeah.
like anybody who reports anything. I mean, it's all the most passive aggressive ways that they can make that person feel as shitty as possible.
And I'm assuming that if you hadn't shown up for things, that you would have been in trouble.
Oh, absolutely.
Exactly.
That would have been a UA, unauthorized absence, instantly a problem. Even if the cause of my absence was because like I had a panic attack about going, because that happened on more than one occasion, and like I was late to formation and like all puffy-eyed and everything. So it's really pernicious, and I'm not a fan.
The punishments become victim blaming because because you're threatening unit cohesion, and unit cohesion is threatened not by the sexual assault and not by the perpetrator, but by the potential for complaint by the victim. But because like that's the mindset, and that's why that senior NCO, the staff NCO, brought you into his office to berate you on that, because like
It
you're
makes
saying,
them look bad.
makes him look bad, and you're jeopardizing a promising young man's future, and it's a failure to acknowledge that
God.
it's your
Yep.
future and like the damage that is realistically done to you. And thank you for sharing first.
You're
I should have
welcome.
said that first, but
Don't worry about it. You're good. A lot of people did in the chat. I appreciate that very much. Thank you all.
and
But yeah. Oh, go ahead.
No, I was gonna nothing. Go ahead.
I was gonna like kind of add on to you answering Unicorn's question, because that's the link I put in the chat through the ACLU. They did a whole report on that, on how VA disability claims for PTSD related to military sexual trauma are granted at a lower rate for other, reasons behind PTSD. I can even quote it from it. The grant rate for MST, military sexual trauma related PTSD claims, has lagged behind the grant rate for other PTSD claims by between 16.5 and 29.6 percentage points every year between 2008 and 2012. And between 2008 and 2011, there's a 10 percentage point difference between the grant rate for PTSDs claimed by women versus men, because of the disparity between the amount of women that are that have MST claims and the amount of male service members who have combat-related PTSD claims. There's a disparity in those numbers, so the grants also reflect that. So there's a lot less in general PTSD claims granted towards women service members versus male service members. So, but also perniciously with that, they also found that male veterans who file MST claims face lower grant rates than females who go through MST claims. So it kind of works against you in both ways. It's very annoying. So Unicorn, it is a constant uphill climb. I actually don't even have the rating for PTSD. I have to adjust and redo my claim, because they have me as adjustment disorder only, as opposed to actually granting PTSD from an MST and from combat. The VA is very frustrating overall, but it's very not good in this realm.
Yes, generally, they want to assign numbers. They want to quantify the suffering of the service member, which is incredibly problematic for so many reasons. For one thing, just comparing suffering. We actually had a conversation about this on the Discord the other day, that comparing suffering is not useful. It really isn't. And saying that one person has suffered more than another it's not just not useful, it invalidates the suffering of the person who is judged to have suffered less. And it's just I've personally experienced that a lot, to have other people invalidate my suffering, and that's it's just it's very painful to experience, and it adds to an already terrible experience. It's a betrayal. Yeah.
For anybody listening that is going through or has that is trying to navigate the benefits side of getting treatment, getting help with MST claims and things like that, there are tons of reasons for why those statistics played out the way they did, and some of the steps that have gone into place, as far as the regulations I mentioned earlier, made it more expansive to combat that. And a lot of the issues, there's misapplication of some of those regs, and I will always advocate for somebody going to a veteran service organization to assist them with their benefits, and not doing that on your own. There is a lot of training and knowledge that comes in through DAV's NSO program and things like that, and you can get help from people that understand those regulations and how to apply them, and get the proper paperwork that forces the VA to recognize that this is an MST claim and not just a regular PTSD claim. It is a different form. There's a completely different, there's a lot of different things that go into it. And so I highly recommend, through personal experience, DAV, Disabled American Veterans, as a VSO to help with their benefits, having personally been previously an employee of them and doing this work in particular. I highly recommend them, even though like they there's it comes down to some offices personnel differences, and it's still a lot of military culture carryover, but the training they go through will help you with the benefits, and that's their whole job, is to help you navigate that stuff. So I do want to put that resource out there for people that need help getting their medical benefits, need help getting their compensation benefits because the trauma prevents them from working, the medical benefits for the actual physical traumas and mental health traumas sustained. So I just absolutely have to put that out there. Thank you, Lil Pistons, for dropping that Find Your Local Office. If you use that Find Your Local Office, you can shoot a message directly to that local office. And when I was employed there a couple years ago, you'd get a message back in 48 hours. Within 48 hours, you'd have a response back from your local office. And they're trained to navigate MST claims and should be supportive for you. So.
Thank you.
To next.
Sorry if that was an overshare.
No, that's okay.
No, that's good information that I'm sure a lot of people need. I mean, I've heard that the DAV is good with claims in general, but it's good to know in this specific instance that they're really helpful with this kind of PTSD claim, because it's something that definitely deserves to be treated as PTSD. That's what it is, you know.
Yeah. And it's so, I remember being told when I was joining, like, you better watch out, you're gonna be assaulted, and I'm like, that shouldn't be a given. That should not even be a thing you say to a person. Like, okay, maybe let me backtrack that, because I don't want to pretend it's not a risk. That's unfair as well, and that's problematic in its own right, especially when it comes to recruiting. They should be honest about the culture that you're entering into. I guess it bothers me that was the norm and the accepted narrative, that if you do it, you have what's coming to you, sort of deal. And
Yeah.
it's
Right.
reinforced. I can't really speak to the other branches, but it was definitely reinforced in the Marine Corps when their insistence on such separation that even we did this one field X, and it was joint. It was joint Five Eyes, so we had Australian Army, we had the British Army, we had the Canadian Army there with us as well, the U.S. and New Zealand. So there was a bunch of services there, a bunch of different countries, and we were we being the U.S., we were the only ones that separated the female members from their units to go to a different spot. Every other service was like, no, like they just stay with their unit. And while I understand that people wanting a separate space, totally fine, I get that. I think the whole focus on maintaining the separation, and also with like in barracks putting all the females on one side or all the females on the second floor type of thing, I think that only fosters that that culture to continue, because you're saying these spaces are separate, and so you don't have to alter anything. You can just keep the same stuff within your circles, and that doesn't really solve anything. Not saying that you should just go ahead and put everybody in the same room. That's not really what I mean, but like completely separating it like that always gave me kind of a pause, and I was never a fan of it, because I felt safe with who I felt safe with, and that was the unit that I am trusting. My like my squad, I would rather stay with them. When we were on smaller field X's, when we were sleeping in the Humvees, they didn't make me and my friend Alyssa sleep outside because we were girls. That didn't happen. We slept in the Humvee with everybody else. Like, it was just reality. So I think this insistence on like the middle and upper brass to completely keep this separate just for fear of something potentially happening and making them look bad is the wrong move, because they're only worried about their image. They're not worried about changing the culture of their units.
Yeah, it places the focus on control of the female body because
Mhm.
the man cannot control himself, and so we must keep them separate. And
So instead of yeah, go ahead.
no, you.
I was just instead of having it be victim focused and focused on the overarching problem, they're focused only on how it makes them look, on how it affects their careers. And that's what I kind of suspect is like the reason why I faced the type of retaliation I did, because it would have looked negatively on the CO if there was something on that record like, oh, you had like there's this weird thing here, what is that? Oh, well, a member was sexually assaulted and blah blah blah. I feel like he's so worried about it making him look bad, as opposed to like actually looking at something that would fix the problem. They want to fix how it makes them look, and they want to fix having to deal with it rather than actually fixing it.
Seems
Absolutely.
like a CYA move too. It's like, well, we separated them. We did what we can. If someone's in the wrong spot that they shouldn't be in, then that's their problem.
Exactly. 100% right. And Unicorn just said in the chat, college dorms were non-gendered, even individual rooms, really helpful to the overall culture. Yeah, I agree with that. When I got to Camp Lejeune, and my roommate was a female, but like it was kind of just mixed in. We weren't all to the same side. It was kind of like whatever room you were assigned, and we all just kind of congregated wherever we did. It was a lot easier, I think. Not that it didn't face any problems, but it was a lot easier to interact and have these kinds of conversations than it was when I was at DLI, and they separated everybody because they were afraid of the potential for something to happen.
Exactly.
And
Well,
if we're go ahead, Pistons. I don't want to talk
I
over
was
anybody.
going to say, no. I was going to say, this is a heavy topic. I just wanted to check in with everyone, how they're doing with it on the time that we've been talking.
I'm not
So
gonna
far, so
lie.
good.
It's I'm getting a little anxiety,
My leg's starting to shake a little.
breathing through it.
Mhm.
Breathing through it.
Is
Thank
there
you for the
more?
check-in though.
Yeah, of course. Is there more that you all want to discuss, or are you feeling like you're at your max?
I do
I
have
think
one
I'm
thing.
good for now.
Okay.
Yeah, go ahead.
I was reading this report from the Government Accountability Office. They also did a view into these. It was really like a view and a testimony into the current efforts focused around. I'll post two links. One is the full report, which is like 30 pages, so no pressure to read that. I didn't read the whole thing. And here's the highlights. The second one is the highlights. So basically, they found a couple of not so great things. Of course, there have been strides, and they definitely talk about that. But what they found is that a majority of the efforts focus on two main things. The first is victim advocacy, which is not a bad thing, and the second is management and oversight. And there's very little in terms of anything to do with prevention, and there's also a huge lack of assessment in how effective these measures are. So the Pentagon, the military, and DoD are relying on these external reports rather than focusing any of the resources on assessment. And I found that to be a little bit annoying. And additionally, only 9% of the National Defense Authorization Acts through the period, which I think they look at between 2004 and 2019, only 9% focused on prevention. And I think that's where we need to focus more on it. Like, good on them for focusing some on investigation, some on victim assistance. Like, those are definitely very needed. And the uniform victim advocate that I worked with, the other VAs that I talked to, were instrumental in my healing and in getting me through the process. I didn't even know where to start, so that was good. Like, the uniform victim advocate and the other victim advocates that they have are 100% on the money. But they need way more focus on the prevention and the culture, as opposed to just I think someone in the chat put it before, like trying to see what you can get away with and only focusing on, well, I'm afraid to interact with females, a thing I've actually been told by a gunnery sergeant to my face. I'm afraid to interact with females because of those implications. And I'm like, if you're afraid, then you need to evaluate your own behavior, not blame it on me. Because he was another personal anecdote about sexual harassment. He was talking to me because he said that I didn't have any respect for myself and was
Oh
being very
God.
problematic.
Oh my God.
Because while we were at a bowling alley, and I had a couple of beers with my platoon and my squad members that by this point I've known for years, and I had the audacity to give one or two of them a hug. So I was hanging all over other male Marines and not showing respect for myself, according to this gunnery sergeant who
God.
was like 20 years my senior. And so this is what he told
That's
me. He's like,
called
I'm afraid.
slut shaming.
I always have another female Marine with me when I talk to another female Marine. And I'm like, that means that I don't trust you at
Dude.
all, and that your subordinates should not trust you because you obviously can't control yourself. So, but that's what the conversation is centered around. It's centered around protecting the perpetrators or the potential perpetrators because they see themselves in them, and that I think is like the heart of the issue, because the culture so allows it to happen that it's accepted, and you're like, oh no, well, I'm going to get in trouble. Well, what are you doing that you can get in trouble for? Maybe reevaluate that. But that's
Yeah,
not focused at
exactly.
all.
It's I might accidentally assault someone, or someone might decide that they didn't want to do it, and so they have been assaulted. And it's such a focus on, what if that happens to me? I might get consequences for it. So I am going to do everything I can to make sure that it doesn't happen to other people, because it might happen to me. Where instead the focus should be on,
Like, just keep your hands to yourself. How hard is it? Like, damn.
yes,
And
we need to
recognize
have.
people's.
Sorry.
No, go ahead.
We need to have what you talked about, prevention. We need to have a lot more conversations about consent, about what consent is and what is not consent. A lot of conversations about what is and is not consent, because there are a lot of people who don't know the difference. They really, really don't. And it's not their fault that they don't know the difference. It is I'm sorry?
I said sex ed in most places really suck.
Exactly. I mean, we need to also educate children, but I mean, considering how horrible it's going in the education system right now, we should educate young men, and young women as well, because we don't know, and we need to know these things in order to have healthy sexual relationships.
Yeah, and you actually hit
yeah.
another point. I realized I was neglecting something. In that Government Accountability Office report, they also noted that that there's a lot of lack in addressing male service member assault. And I don't want to like do the whole, well, what about men thing, because that's kind of useless. But in this
Yeah.
particular space, I think that that's also really important, because a lot of male service members can feel very invalidated, and there's also a lot of the culture, like for example, teabagging somebody. That is a textbook sexual assault.
Absolutely.
If it's a joke between your friends and you're doing it, and the guy was like, haha, yeah, it's all cool, I'm not going to say that you're wrong. Like, I am not here to judge what you and your friends do. If this is like an agreed upon thing, I don't necessarily agree with it, but I don't have to. I'm not part of it. But if someone is actively fighting against it and you do it anyway, you have committed a graven, an egregious attack against their autonomy, and that's not right either. And just because it's accepted as a joke doesn't make it okay. So I think that the culture also doesn't really allow male service members or non-male, non-binary service members to really step up and report that, because they get ridiculed as a result of the culture, because it's not very masculine and it's not very Marine-like if you have to do that. It's just really, really pernicious, really, really insidious, and it goes through all of these different levels. It's not just against women service members, obviously. It's also against them. It's also against male service members, and whether it is with your superior or your peers, it doesn't matter. It's still just as betraying. Just that like denial of autonomy and denial of your space. But when you see these SAPR briefs and all they're talking about, because even though they do mention consent and it's talked about, most of the ones that I went to, it was oftentimes a male service member talking about it and saying, hey guys, make sure you ask a few times because it could happen to you. And that shouldn't be the way that it's phrased. I am not a boogeyman coming for your sons. That's not what I did. I did not report it. I did not report my sexual assault because I wanted to take this guy down. I didn't want this to happen and be accepted in the community that I was entering into. That's why I did it. I wanted accountability. But so many people are painted as the evil boogeyman coming for your good sons because of that, because it's framed that way. It is framed from that point of view, and I think that's what really needs to change. You need to take away the focus of how to not get caught or not get in trouble, to treat each other with fucking respect.
Yeah, and I have to bring back up people who don't realize they were sexually assaulted, because the culture is such that so often they laugh it off. I am one of those people who was sexually assaulted while I was in the military, and I fucking laughed it off and said it was cool and that everything was fine because it was such an accepted behavior all around me all the time. And that is so insidious. It's so insidious that my oppression is so incredibly internalized that I literally was attacking myself for considering saying shit about it. Not considering reporting it, considering saying shit to the person who did it.
I spent the full next day going exactly that conversation with myself. The whole next day in my room, just like, if I do it, then this. If I do it, then I'm this. Like, maybe it wasn't that bad. Maybe I'm being a little bit oversensitive. No, I
Yeah,
wasn't. But that's what my brain was telling me because that's the culture I was in.
absolutely. Absolutely.
There's so many.
Go ahead.
I was gonna say there's so many like different things that come to mind after having pacifist war vet share that, and thank you for sharing a little bit about your own experience. I personally appreciate you sharing that story with me and us and the community. And it's really hard to follow up listening to two of my friends, people that have become friends in such a short period of time, tell these stories and remind me of various things that I hadn't thought about. The teabagging example is absolutely a common behavior in locker rooms in high school, long before the military. So and that behavior is prevalent in the military, right? There are rich there are hazings, long histories of hazing and different things that don't just borderline like and butt up against sexual assault, but are full on sexual assault type things that are just part of various masculine or male centric cultures. And Plantfa talking about the example that Gunny and hanging a female Marine hanging all over male Marines. It removes the support structures from female service members because those are friends. So now it breeds this culture in your peer group of
Yep.
fellow lance corporals and sergeants and your very peer group within the squad. You are not somebody that I am allowed to be friends with. I can't share a level of camaraderie. We have to be separated. If I do anything with you, my fellows will think that we are doing something, or and I don't mean that in like, as in my fellow male Marines would commonly think that there are things going on, and with female Marines that were associated with male Marines. Do you think, and rumors would start targeting a female Marine for having male Marines, and it comes out of it. That's another aspect that removes support structures and otherizes women or sexual beings in the military, because I don't want to be dead on in MST affects all genders and gender representations, but it definitely prevalently favors female military service members. That the allegations that force them into isolation, that cause mental health dilemmas because of lack of support and community. And then when something happens, it is reinforced. The culture reinforces that there is victim blaming because men shouldn't have even been associating with you, right?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
it's absolutely
yeah,
devastating,
you
not for the
put at
men,
risk.
but yep, absolutely. And that's
Yeah.
not like a men's, like that's not something that's like male centric. That is absolutely affecting the female and the women involved. You know, Metagame Gate brings up getting nut checked. Yep,
Oh my god.
that's
Oh
one.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
So much. And I literally have to read the rest of it because it's so true. So much homoerotic bullshit that is normalized as rape. It's rape culture, straight
It is.
up.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Anyone remember like hearing oh, the Marine Corps is the most gay like service and of all the branches? And it's like, okay, all you're saying is that the Marine Corps has the like one of the worst rape cultures of the services, and I don't know if you should celebrate that. And that's like something I used to like joke about and say with my fellow service members. We would be like, haha, yeah, that's so true. It's not gay if it's underway. Also, like all of that stuff was also very, very pernicious and gross.
Yeah.
Yeah, and
Yeah,
just saying
that
on
was
a nut check,
something I heard all the time.
yeah, exactly. Um, and it was like a ha funny joke, but it's also kind of fucking not. And just to like give credit to what Metagamegate said, I remember we were at DLI. It's a joint service thing, so all the services were there. And one of the things that happened that I admittedly even participated in was a nut check. Whenever you saw the Air Force, now they would have like ropes around their shoulder, showing what they like were involved with or helped with. And if they had a teal rope, it meant that they were volunteers helping with the sapper program. And the whole Marine Corps thing was if you saw that, you had to nut check your buddy. And if you were with or like if you were a woman or you had boobs, you would get tit checked. It's the same deal. You just like a little chop. And it seemed so silly and like lighthearted and nothing. But when I think about it now, I think about how like looking at people because they're marked as it, they volunteer for the program that is meant to fight against these things, and your response is to literally do it to the person next to you and laugh about it. So that to me is a little bit sus. I maybe that was a wrong call for us.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I would go back just real quick if I can and touch on something that Sin was talking about again, like about the rumors flying around. You know,
Oh yeah.
I was in a infantry unit when I was active duty, and for our second deployment, we were on a MEU. And if anybody doesn't know what that is, that's like you go out on a deployment, you load up on Navy ships and go out with the Navy on a deployment. And the ship that I was on, there were 300 to 400 people, I forget, between the Navy and the Marines. And 99.9% of them were men. There were like 3 women, if I remember right, on the ship, and the rumors were flying constantly about 2 of the women in particular, especially when we came back from. We went to Egypt one time for one of our port stops, and we stayed most of the time. It was just a day thing. We couldn't stay out overnight off of the ship because again, they didn't trust us. Probably the right move, but in a way. But when we came back from Egypt, I remember hearing rumors that they had caught one of the women having sex with one of the sailors. And, it depended on who you were hearing it from, where that took place on the ship. But I heard it from multiple people. And, once the deployment was over, we also heard rumors about supposedly the one of the other women supposedly was having an affair with one of the officers, and he got relieved of duty after we got back to port. Whether that was true or not, I have no idea. But the rumors, anytime that male Marines got around women, the rumors flew, and it just I I look back on that time and I should have said stuff back then, and said, well, "Where's your proof of this?" Um, and I didn't, and I regret it.
Thank you. Thank you for acknowledging that. There is one thing that really, really bothers me about a lot of this culture is that a lot of people look back on their military service. A lot of men look back on their military service and say, well, I never assaulted anyone and I never knew anybody who assaulted anyone, or I never harassed anyone and I never knew anybody who harassed anyone. I never witnessed harassment. And I find that incredibly hard to believe because it is so incredibly common. And so many people watch it happen. It is so accepted and they just walk past and say not a word. And unfortunately, I hate that this is the case, but it is. A lot of the time when a woman brings up that she has been harassed, or not even saying I've been harassed, just saying that's a dick move, don't fucking talk to me like that, she is immediately called oversensitive. And what it takes is another man saying, no, dude, stop being a dick. And so, I thank you for acknowledging that you may have had some problematic behavior back then. And I think that a lot of men resist the idea that they had some kind of problematic behavior, the same way that white people don't want to admit that they have contributed to white supremacy for their entire life. And so thank you for that.
Yeah, I
It's not an
mean,
easy thing to acknowledge.
what's that?
It's not an easy thing to acknowledge, even in like small ways, even in the way that I just acknowledge my own. Like I participated in that nut and tit check thing, and it wasn't right that I did that.
Yeah.
I mean, I absolutely have to echo Pacifist War Vet. Like, it is so pervasive.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it is so pervasive in all of American culture. The sexual dilemmas that we talk about, and it's amplified in the military. It's absolutely not amplified there. And to say that you haven't been complicit in it, I myself know for a fact that I have been complicit in it in various ways, and it's
I know that there are things that I also saw. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah,
Sorry.
yeah, that's kind of where my thought was going. Is like,
Yeah.
I know there are things that I've seen, there are things that I myself have been complicit in, and there are means in, like, you have to do self-reflection and be honest with yourself in your role in society and in communication and in social interactions and the relationships that you develop or have had with other people, and understand where the behaviors and how they impacted them, and what you didn't do is just as much as what you did do. Yeah, that's it. Sorry.
Yeah, like there's
Oh,
definitely
don't
things
be.
that I saw that I could have I could have said something and I didn't. Whether it was because I didn't want to bring the attention to myself, or I didn't think it was that bad, and I'm like, okay, pick your battle sort of thing, because that is unfortunately a reality. Like you kind of have to pick your battles. Like which one is it worth it to get to get messed up over, or to become the problem, so to speak, over, like which ones are worth it. And it's really unfortunate that that's a reality, that you kind of do have to truly pick your battles. Like, is this one worth it? No, I'll let this one go. And if this gets worse, then I'll say something. And I am not the only one that thought that way. I remember talking to fellow female Marines, and that was definitely completely echoed. Like, yeah, I know it's wrong, but I'm picking my battles on this one, and I'll pick a worse one next time. Like, I'm not saying anything about this because I just want to do my job and leave. And it's really unfortunate that part is definitely not addressed. You see that in the articles that I read before the stream for that. Like all the anecdotes are basically like, I'm not seeing anyone step up. I'm not seeing any, like, sure, the command is saying we care. The command is saying all of these things, but when we're in the shop and, Sergeant so and so says something derogatory, everyone laughs. What do you like? If you're the only one that's going to say something, then it's not really going to go well for you. And what Unicorn just said in the chat, like, if you are femme presenting, intervening can often be dangerous. It can. Like, if I do say
Absolutely.
something, then I'm the problem, and then maybe later at the bar, what if they find me and get really upset over the fact that I said something about their buddy?
Yeah.
That has actually literally happened to me. Luckily, it wasn't that serious. It was like a lower level thing, but it's definitely something I think about constantly in the real world today. Like, even not in the military, it's a real risk of saying something. You kind of paint yourself as a target, and that's another it's a whole nother issue that we can probably do another hour and a half stream on, because that's its own problem.
Yeah, imagine being a femme presenting service member right now and having
Yeah.
watched the news of Vanessa Guillen.
Mm-hmm.
So now, if I report my sexual harassment, they might just fucking murder me.
Yeah.
Like,
and the Army clearly won't care about it, or the Marine Corps might not care about it.
Then they'll say it had nothing to do with it.
Yeah.
Like,
and tell my family what? Like,
and I know that people
go away.
And I know that there are people who would say that I am exaggerating by saying, I think I might get murdered, but it fucking happened. And that fear is 100% valid. And if you are a service member who is feeling that fear is 100% valid. You are not overreacting. You are not oversensitive. The fear of men is real. I have had it said to me so many times that, oh, you fear men. I do. I truly have a fear of men. And that is real for so many women and or non-binary and or femme presenting people, for non-males, basically. It is true for so many. And it's not unwarranted, and it's not there are a million reasons why that fear is extremely valid. And so if you're feeling that, I just want you to know that you are valid and your feelings about that are valid. So how are y'all doing so far? I am definitely gearing in on an end for myself. I feel like I need to go take a shower and calm down a little bit. I had talked to Piston and Plantifa in our little private chat that I had a poem that I wanted to share to close out the stream that is about consent. And I was wondering if there was anybody else who had anything they wanted to share before we started to close out.
Smedley, what do you think?
No, I don't think so. If everybody wants to close out, I know it's been a heavy night. I'm good with finishing up.
All right.
Anything? I'm gonna add one thing before you go. Before bed.
Please.
If you anyone listening, I'm not sure what our audience looks like right now, but if anyone listening is going through that or has gone through that, and you want help going through that process, I've done both kinds of reports. I did a restricted report way back because it was pre-military, that one. So that one's really, really simple, but the unrestricted is a little bit more difficult to navigate around. So if you need help with that, or you just want a perspective on it, you can feel free to reach out to me. Let me know that that's what it is in the DM, and I will absolutely create space for you and do whatever I can do to help. Even if it's just talking you through it, because I know that is one of the more difficult parts, is just getting yourself to do it and getting yourself to talk it out. So my DMs are open, especially specifically for things like that. I don't have a problem sharing my experience when it comes to that, because I know that can be very, very valuable. And I hope you all take care of yourselves and drink water.
Yeah, I agree. Smedley, did you have any resources to share for people who might be victims of MST? Who any kind of resources for them?
Uh, I should have thought of that, but that is not something that I look
Yeah,
up.
I
So
didn't think of it either.
I would say just you know, I think I saw at least one person. Yeah, Pistons put a crisis text um, line in here, crisis line. So I would say, you know, go there. There is, you know, there's the VA number, which I cannot think of off the top of my head. But if you go to the VA website, they have a veterans crisis line. Um, if you're not a veteran, there should be some resources in your local area as well, by the local government.
Yeah. Absolutely. Pistons has dropped a couple of things into the chat. She's also dropped the Find Your Local Office for your DAV. You can also join our Discord and come talk to us there. And we are here for you for sure. Any last thoughts before I do my poem?
Thank you for sharing. I'm going to preemptively say thank you for sharing your poem, because I think your poem should be final words before I take us out. And so
All right, cool.
we'll let you carry us off, if that's all right with everybody. And thank everybody for sharing everything. And thank our audience and community for having this space. It's amazing.
Awesome. Thank you guys all for joining us. Thank you for listening to my story. Thank you for sharing your story. So I'm going to try and end with, it's a slightly humorous way to look at consent. It is the metaphor of a hallway being a person's body and mind and soul. And so here we go. This is called The Hallway of Doors. Welcome to the Hallway of Doors, where all we really want is for you to have a good time. You are free to try any of the doors that you like in a respectful manner. But remember, a locked door is a locked door. Don't be discouraged by one locked door. There are many doors to try. Simply give each one a gentle turn of the handle to see if it's locked. Some doors do not open. Some will automatically open in time. And depending on your behavior behind certain doors, you may be granted access behind other previously off-limits doors. Please keep in mind that the hallway of doors is not just the hallway of a person's body, but also to their mind, heart, and whole life. These halls are a part of a larger house that is me, and you must abide by the house rules. You may notice that certain guests have general access to common areas, while others will be granted all access unrestricted passes. Your level of access is solely dependent on your actions. Feel free to bring a housewarming gift, dress to impress, pick up after yourself, and as always, be respectful of any other people that you meet behind these doors. Although you will never be the only person in these halls, if you take the necessary steps, you may find that there are doors that only you can open. Please note that when doors are unlocked, you will be notified personally. And just because you have been permitted through once does not mean that you will always have access. So, be on your best behavior. Please respect all warning signs, hazard labels, and in all situations, refer to basic human decency guidelines. Your visit is by invitation, and this privilege can be revoked at any time. Now remember, we do want you here in the Hallway of Doors, and we hate to have to say it at all, but access cannot be attained by threat of force. And if you continue to try a door that you have previously found to be locked, including coercion, trying to pick a lock, kicking or throwing your weight against the door, removing hinges, or any other related behavior, this may result in the locking of doors previously open to you, and may be grounds for immediate removal, temporary suspension, or banishment indefinitely. Enjoy your stay.